Breaking news on the special edition of the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show here on the More Than Philly Sports Network. Doug Pederson, the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, has been fired. This news breaking just about less than 5 minutes ago, 2:12 p.m. here on the East Coast. With Gavin on just a minute. If you're interested in calling in, giving us your thoughts, let us know. Contact us in either the chat or anything else, and we'll send you over some private links in order to get you to join us. We have a lot of news breaking down here. This is some substantial news that, frankly, I didn't necessarily see. I don't think anybody saw this coming immediately, while some of us had called for it. It was unlikely, at the very least, that possibly Howie Roseman, or as Gavin wants to call him, Howard Roseman, would have been fired prior to this. But this is big news. There appeared to be a meeting today. For those who did not watch our show earlier today, we were breaking this news down. I said, look, if Doug's going to be here, it's going to be 24 hours. Well, about 4 hours after our show went live today, we are currently looking at this situation where the Philadelphia Eagles have just fired their head coach, Doug Pederson. Tomorrow on the show, we'll be breaking down some of the head coaching options, but we're just trying to break this down right now. All the news sources are confirming that. We do have word from ESPN officially. Doug Pederson has been fired 5 seasons of his tenure. Of course, the Eagles winning the Super Bowl under head coach Doug Pederson. This is breaking news. Carson Wentz, a horrible year. Philadelphia Eagles head coach had lost the locker room. This is some substantial stuff going on right now. This is some worrisome stuff. If you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, possibly it could be good stuff as well. I'm going to pull in now Gavin. Gavin, I know that we were kind of rooting for. I mean, like I said, rooting for this. You had sensed it yourself, but this is major news. It's so major that we are back on the air. This has never happened before. We have done Flyers post game live once, Gavin. I know you were not able to be here, but this is big news. This is substantial breaking news.
Well, it was so breaking news that I was sitting there watching a movie, eating popcorn, and our good buddy Dom Amoroso broke the news to me and Dewan, and you broke the news to me, and you were like, "Do you want to hop on?" And I had to get the kernels out and put down the popcorn and hop on here. But Zach, can we just talk about my history about me calling things? I called.
Credit, man. I mean, I gotta be honest. All credit.
I mean, you hate to see, you don't wish people being fired, but sadly things happen, and that's the problem. And Zach, I've been calling this so long, as I say, once you lose the locker room, that's it. That's it.
No, you said that earlier. You did, and that was the issue. And I think I've been reading reports since we were live a few hours ago, and it looked like Doug wanted to bring in some people that were already into. He wanted to promote Press Taylor to offensive coordinator, move a few guys around, and Jeff Lurie said, "We want to change things up." He's like, "If you're going to go over my head, I guess you'll have to fire me." This is substantial news. I don't know what to say. I made this clear. I made this clear early in the year. The players rallied around Doug. Last year they did it when they were 5-7. The year before they did it when they were 6-7, and this year they didn't. Again, things happen. Horrible play caller. We have a lot of things going on, and I'll be honest with you. It's emotional. I know that as much as we want him gone, it was emotional. Brett Brown, when he was fired, was also emotional. But sometimes the things have to come. I think that for the Sixers, they did it 1 year too late. I think the Eagles did it perfectly. I mean, I was talking about this last year. It wasn't one bad – for those who don't know, it wasn't one bad season. And that's where we need to get things clear, because they refused to run the ball years in a row. Very few play calling that was beneficial. It's been a few years. Again, you go 9-7, 9-7, 4-10-1. That's not good. The Titans won a playoff game. They fired their head coach because they were going 9-7 year after year. Mike Vrabel comes in, changes the culture. They win. Of course, we know they lost yesterday, but that's besides the point. The Eagles know we are in a very bad situation right now. We have the 4th most expensive roster in the league, a head coach that is not able to get things fixed, and a front office that is unable to develop talent. I don't know what the front office is going to look like right now, but this is the first move they just made. They have fired Doug Pederson. That is breaking news here live on the air. Gavin, some other thoughts on that?
Well, Zach, first of all, I got to clarify myself again. I don't like when people get fired, but this is one of these things I had to go. Zach, you hit it on the nose. It wasn't just one bad year; it was 2 bad years, and luckily Carson Wentz was able to pull it out his rear end and was able to somehow string together a bad Eagles team to the playoffs. But Zach, he had offensive line last year. That was able to hide some of the problems. This year, the problems are set out right there. All right, you don't have Lane Johnson. You didn't have Brandon Brooks and Jason Pierce. For what? I don't know why. Andre Dill is never even on the field. Zach, you put this out here, right? You put all this stuff out here, and then we saw the wounds. We saw the bleeding. We saw all the scars. What happened next? You put Jalen Hurts in. That covers it. That covers everything for a little bit. But
Very temporary.
For temporary. Zach, you said earlier today, the Band-Aid opened back up and started bleeding again. Zach, you lost. I said you lost the locker room. Once you lose the locker room, it doesn't matter what you did. Your locker room will no longer vouch for you. They'll no longer play for you. That means they don't care about you. If Miles Sanders comes on and says what he said, we were surprised. It doesn't matter what the report was that he breached at halftime. He told what was going to go down. Everybody knew. Well, guess what, Doug? You're talking to a team that believed in themselves. Every game they believed that something they could win. I won't say it's like there was not one game this year where they didn't believe they could win. It's like every game they was in and we knew about it. They knew they had a chance at every game they wanted to do. So here's my thing. When you look at how this Eagles team played, let's just go through the events. And I'm just talking about from last week to now. What happened? You're down 3 to the Washington football team. You have a chance to come back. Jalen Hurts wasn't having a great game, but he had the only 2 touchdowns of the game for the Eagles. What do? You go into halftime. You pull someone in, or you put Nate Sudfeld on like this a senior night. All of a sudden, it's like I don't get it. You put Nate Sudfeld on like this a senior night, and then what happens after that? You lose. You lose the locker room. You got your 3 long players. You know your tenured players here, and they're sitting out on the field waiting, trying to figure out what the hell happened. And Zach, to be honest, I don't think we know what the hell happened. As an Eagles fan, as me, I wanted to lose to get Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith now. But the way how it went down was all timely bad. Then you go through the week. You had Jason Kelsey. If your players had to come out and say that did not happen, and the other player did say that happened, that's a bad mixture right there in the locker room.
Yeah, no doubt.
2 consecutive years where it's been bad. But Zach, I don't know. I know we're bringing someone on that to help break this down.
For sure. I think you bring up a good point. We'll just get him in for a minute or two, but has been on at least one time before. Kalen, I know it's a lot of breaking news coming in. Thanks for taking a minute to be with us. We can tell you are in a little bit of a nicer weather place than us, but break it down, man.
Okay, Kalen.
Just showing up. But yes, Doug Pederson just fired, Eagles head coach.
Yeah, man. I'm a little ecstatic about that. I mean, 4-11-1 season, the coaching and play calling has been iffy the whole season. So many questionable, 4th down calls. Like, yeah, go for it. But I think the play call could have been better other than, for example, it's about, I forget what game, but maybe the Ravens game, 4th and 2, and they run a read option with Wentz and Boston Scott. Why would you do that? And I think they handed it to Boston Scott and turnover on downs, and we lose the game. And like you guys were saying, we've had many games all season where they're down to the wire, like 1 maybe 2 score games, like a field goal and a touchdown. I mean 11 losses is terrible, but when it's 11 close losses, it's just you question the coaching, you question the play call, and you question why he's calling certain plays in like crunch time where we could come back and maybe win that. So, and I think, a lot of the assistant coaches were a part of the Super Bowl run where Doug wasn't really, playing the calls. He was more just like the head coach role where he's making sure his team's, running well and everyone's staying on top of their stuff. But I mean, you see Frank Reich leaves, goes to the Colts, and they have a playoff season with, how many wins? 11 or so? With Phillip Rivers, who's on the brink of retirement with 9 kids. So you get what I'm saying here? It's just, I think it was time. He had his year, but I don't think it was his year. I think it was more the players' year. They all kind of came together, and we had a real good team. Wentz played his ass off until he got hurt. And, I mean, I think Doug was also the one that ruined Wentz. I mean, we had something good in Wentz, no matter how bad he played this year. And no matter how much I was chanting Jalen Hurts, Wentz was our franchise quarterback, and we kind of just ruined that for ourselves because Doug's play calling was iffy, I don't know what else there is. And, I mean, you could argue the draft picks, but I don't know. I think it was a good decision.
Well, Kalen, let me ask you this question. First of all, that tree in the background is really throwing me off. I'm a little bit jealous because it's cold up here. It's cold at home. Yeah. But let me ask you this. So I don't believe Doug Pederson gets fired, but if it's in the locker room, do you think the locker room with Miles Sanders coming and saying what he said and Jason Kelsey saying what he said, do you think that was a major reason of why he got fired? Because it looked like Jeffrey Lurie wasn't going to go anywhere with this.
you got a good point there, because those are also, I mean, you can argue Miles Sanders isn't a franchise player yet, but I'm sure he will be the way he'll start producing, hopefully. But, I mean, got the water splashing up. But I think, I think that definitely played a part. I think Jeffrey Lurie saw his key players weren't happy with the decisions made by the coach. And I think he kind of, stuck with what's working. The players and what they want, when they get what they want, that seems to work. So, I mean, like you were saying about the Nate Sudfeld thing, that was iffy. I mean, granted, he mentioned before that Nate Sudfeld was going to be played, but when you're down a touchdown and you're playing for pride and you've been saying all week it's a no-hat game, it's a charity game, then stick to your word. Like, clearly Jalen Hurts wasn't having the greatest game, but he was still what was working because of his ability to run. And the point proven that we were actually closer to winning when we were running the ball versus throwing just goes to show that the play calling was terrible this year. Miles Sanders should have been touching the ball over 25 times a game, but I doubt he got anywhere near that in any of the games. So,
good point there. That's a big thing. I've pointed that out. People have asked. I've been a pretty adamant defender of Carson Wentz. Obviously, at this point, it's gotten hard to do so. But when you take a look at a certain situation, whether it be the last season we spoke about, you got to run the ball. We've broke it down, Kalen. I know we've had a chance to talk about that. Anything else you wanted to cover? I appreciate you coming on.
I mean, I don't have too much else. I think I covered most of what was on my mind, especially after seeing Doug Pederson getting fired. So.
All right, for sure, man. Well, Kalen, I'll let you get back to that. It seems like you're having a good time in the warm weather. Thank you again.
It's cool. Hey,
Thanks for having me.
Kalen, where you at? Where you at? Just to humor me, where are you right now?
I'm in Stuart, Florida.
Of course. I'm in cold Pennsylvania.
Taking a little week vacation with the grandparents.
That's
awesome, man. We'll catch you soon. Thanks for being on.
Hey, thank you for having me.
How's it going, Kalen? It's so cold up here, Zach, after seeing that. I just noticed that. I'm not happy.
Yeah, for sure. We do have one more guest coming on in just a minute here. We're getting him all squared away. But, yes, it's been consistent. Again, Carson Wentz has had a struggle of a year. But the question is, why would you move on from Doug versus Carson? Gavin, what did I say before the season? You take a look at a guy like Baker Mayfield, right, where he was struggling. He had interceptions last year. You improved the O-line in the offseason. He's got a lot of talent around him. There's no doubt in my mind. And then you take a look at getting a new coach, and they're in the playoffs, and they just beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, with that being said, I'm going to pull in now a friend that's been on before. Ryan, it is good to have you on, man. We've talked about this. We talked about Doug Pederson arguably being on the hot seat, especially how last week went. Obviously, your Giants were close to the playoffs. But what are some of your first thoughts about Doug Pederson being fired by the Philadelphia Eagles?
Years.
Possibly maybe having that black box problem again.
Go ahead.
Like you had before, Gavin. Another one. But yes. The big thing, it's simple. We've had new coaches in the entire division now, right? Last 4 years, or all four teams: Dallas, Washington, New York, and now Philly's on top of that. So, Gavin, let me ask you that then. What are you looking at for some candidates? You liking Eric Bieniemy?
Yeah, Zach, I am, and here's why. He deserves a job. Have you seen what he did with the offense? And yes, I know Andy Reid's the play caller. I don't know who's the player. Is it Andy Reid or Sam? I think it might be both of them. Honestly, Zach, they're geniuses. What's going on in Kansas City? You come into a situation in Kansas City where, yes, you have Patrick Mahomes. I know you have all these weapons. But, Zach, weapons don't mean that much unless you have a great system. Now, I know what I said earlier, Zach, where I said the system sometimes, but the players can make the system. It might be a little bit of both. Zach, you got to give this guy a chance here because you got a young quarterback and you got a great position in draft pieces. And, Zach, if he gets a job, I'm pretty sure players would want to play with him. Pat Mahomes would put in a good word. That's his guy. I know it's going to hurt for Pat Mahomes to see him go. But, Zach, that's my number one selection. And then the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, I like him too. And I know he's a defensive guy. We did lose Jim Schwartz. Hallelujah. But, Zach, there's a lot of good people out here. You just have to use your eyes and look for it. All right? I hope Howard Roseman makes the right call. Zach, I hope Howard Roseman is the next person to go next. Now, knowing me, I can't get two wishes to come true in a day, Zach. I guess I can get one. But all in all, Zach, I think Eric Bieniemy, I think Robert Saleh.
Robert Saleh.
And I would say that's the only two I really want at the moment in time because Robert Saleh is going to get the most out of his players. And when it comes to Eric Bieniemy, we know he's been deserving of a chance of this coaching always. So, Zach, those are my only two I got for you right now.
I got you, man. I mean, look, I did read an article this morning. It's funny. It had nothing to do with the Eagles, but I did see a thing that talked about the top candidates for head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. So, I mean, Gavin, we brought up a lot of them. Jim Caldwell's another name. There's a lot of moving pieces, and I'm glad the Eagles did this before anyone committed to any head coach. I know Jacksonville is closing on Urban Meyer, but we'll see how it rolls out.
Urban Meyer's not a guy I want here. I'm sorry. That just doesn't seem like a fit for the city. You gotta have somebody. You just gotta have somebody that fits the mentality. Or you just need a new start. Zach, you need an offensive play caller the most. If you're going to pick
that's the most important thing you need.
If you're going to pick a defensive coach, make sure you have a damn good offensive coordinator coming in here, because that was the problem. You had an average defensive coordinator and a horrible offensive play caller, and you saw where it got us. It got us absolutely nowhere. This is a good day if you're an Eagles fan. This is a really good day.
I mean, here, I'll read you off. Let's just look at some of the names here. But I do have a quick question. We did talk about this morning that Cleveland Browns special teams coach, possibly offensive coordinator job, not head coaching job. But if we bring in someone who could possibly recruit that could be a possibility. Now, for those wondering about our next guest, he is getting squared away. We're just figuring out right now. But with that being said, Gavin, here's the article I read this morning. Top 13 candidates. Obviously, number one, Eric Bieniemy, Brian Dabble, who is the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, Robert Saleh, Matt Eberflus, which is a defensive coordinator for the Colts. Don Martindale, of course, helped develop Lamar Jackson and the scheme there. A couple other ones here. Offensive coordinator Arthur Smith for the Titans. Josh McDaniels, again, another name that I've talked about before. Joe Bradley, the offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. Marvin Lewis, of course, we know his history. Jim Caldwell. Urban Meyer, of course, we know his situation. Pat Fitzgerald is another one. And then Lincoln Riley is going to be another interesting name. So that is a question, because if we go with Lincoln Riley, it commits the Eagles to Jalen Hurts. However, did this move – we got Ryan here. I was going to bring him in a minute. But did this firing show the Eagles are committed to Carson Wentz for at least one more season?
No, it did not. It does not.
Okay.
You know why it does not? Because the damage is already done. There's nothing much here anymore. But let me go back to that Lincoln Riley thing. We had his running back coach here earlier this year. We had DeMarco Murray here. When I asked about Lincoln Riley, he spoke highly of Lincoln Riley. Guess what? I want Lincoln Riley here. One, because the Jalen Hurts connection, and that was arguably one of Jalen Hurts' best years too, was with Lincoln Riley. You're gonna put him in, and Lincoln Riley is also, and correct me if I'm wrong, he is an offensive-minded guy too.
He is. No, they've been a great system. They've had a great system in Alabama. With that being said, Gary, I do want to. You can get to the last stop. I will pull in Ryan. Ryan, you see us and hear us, all right?
Yeah, I'm good right now.
Perfect, man. Thanks for coming on. Just some initial thoughts, of course. The most important news, of course, you're a Giants fan. Every single team now in the NFC East has a new coach since last season. What are some of your first thoughts?
Pederson's record doesn't deserve him the head coach job, really. I think he has 2 more wins than his losses. I think it's like, you guys can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I think it's like 36, 34-1 is his record. Going off of what you said about, like, does this does it say that Carson Wentz is the quarterback of the future? It does not, even though I think Pederson drafted him in 2016. I could be mistaken there too. But I was surprised at one point, but then I'm like, well, you guys did tank, and they didn't like that. Nobody did. And usually when you have to go to the owner, the CEO of the organization, and your team didn't do well the last season, it usually doesn't end well. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. It's just been a crazy year for the Eagles. I've been talking for a couple of years about questioning the play calling. I've spoken in great detail with a bunch of different people, a few different insiders, and they've said that the most ideal situation, what the Eagles would do, is 2 things. The first one is that you would bring in an offensive coordinator to help with Doug and an assistant to Howie Roseman. Well, the Eagles went ahead and went over the head, and they fired Doug Pederson. That is the most pivotal part of it. And the second major part now is what's going to happen with the general manager. Are they ready to move in a different direction with him? Because what's Doug Peterson had to work with? Let's be honest here. And again, I'm fond of the firing. I don't love a lot of his play select, but what does he have to work with? You have Miles Sanders and Boston Scott, an average backfield. Your wide receiving core is below average. Your O-line is depleted all year long. The past few years, they've been very injured. Now, we feel like they've been winnable games. I give it because we think of how elite our quarterbacks have been. So I don't know. I mean, Doug gets the short end of the stick here. I think it was his time to go. But at the same time, you can't ignore the other issues. Why was Jason Peters brought back? Why did Jason Peters, I'm not going to say what he did, but he kind of went to Doug's office. I'm going to play left tackle. And Doug's like, all right. The lack of assertiveness, the lack of one single voice talking is the major problem. So, Ryan, before we let you go, anything else that you wanted to chime in on this breaking news?
Yeah, you did say something about when I was backstage. You said something about Lincoln Riley, and he had Jalen Hurts had a great year with Lincoln Riley. I have the stats right here. He had the second highest completion percentage in his college career under Lincoln Riley. He had 32 touchdown passes and 8 interceptions. They made it to the college football playoff. Now they ran into a freight train with Joe Burrow and the LSU Tigers, but he threw the ball. He was a good runner. He was a good thrower. He had 20 rushing touchdowns at Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley's an offensive. He's like an offensive coordinator as a head coach, and I wouldn't be surprised if you guys try to go get him. I don't know if he would leave to go to the Eagles, but you never know.
No doubt. Well, Ryan, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it. We'll definitely have you on the show itself soon. Gavin, anything else you want to tell Ryan?
Yeah, the Giants are – no, I'm just playing. But, Ryan, I mean, you're right. And thank you for coming on. And tomorrow, the Steelers, remember, we got some –
we got to bury those Steelers tomorrow.
We got some business to take care of.
Oh, it's going to be fun. Ryan, again, thanks for coming on, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep, thank you.
All right, great. We do have another guest coming on in just a minute or two. We'll see if we can get him. Pretty ace.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was reading something here when Ryan was talking. I was reading Doug Peterson said in his words, sick of people telling him what to do. Well, listen, genius. And this is why I'm pissed off now, because we're telling you what to do because what you're doing is not working.
What kind of head coach do you want to have at that point? Sorry to interrupt you, Gab. I remember last year they spoke about he said in an interview he wasn't sure if he was keeping Jim Schwartz or not, but he was confident that Mike Rowe, the offensive coordinator, would stay. And then guess what happens the next day? They have a meeting, they fire Mike Rowe, and then they keep Jim Schwartz on. They went over Doug's head last year. That's the beginning of the issues. That's where the major problems are. I'm going to bring in now. We do have our next guest, Jake Starr, coming on. It's breaking news. I know you're in the middle of a meeting up there, but I know the news broke while you were in it. But we got to break this down. We got a few guests on so far. Everyone's talking about the same stuff. We had an Eagles fan on, a Giants fan on, and now Jake, another insider, I'd say, has a good understanding of it all. So, first reactions. I mean, what's going on here?
I mean, I just tweeted this a couple minutes ago, but my initial reaction is that they went to the meeting today, and I think Doug was set on going forward with Jalen Hurts, and I don't think Jeffrey Lurie was convinced of that yet. I don't think he saw enough, but he also committed. I mean, he's the guy who signs the checks. He committed $130+ million to Carson Wentz. So that's the first thing. The first disagreement came. I think moving forward, you kind of look at it where even if Jalen is the guy going forward, how do you trust Doug Peterson to groom Jalen Hurts after seeing the downfall of Carson Wentz the next couple of years after 2017? Injuries and all. So I think the key is now you have to decide where you want to go forward. And maybe you just say we're going to go in the training camp with a battle for both, and you begin to build around both of those guys. And I find that if Howie Roseman stays, which he shouldn't, I mean, as much blame as Doug Peterson gets for, I see Gavin shaking his head.
It's not a talented roster.
For as much blame as Doug Peterson got for this year, and he deserved blame. He certainly deserved blame. There were a lot of bad decisions made by him this year. Howie Roseman deserves the blame as well. He had an aging roster that was in a cap crisis, held on to a Super Bowl players way too long, and this was the end result this season for it. So if you're an incoming head coach, how do you say that, how do you trust that I'm going to come into a not a broken organization? Because Doug Pederson said he was fed up. He was fed up that he didn't have any say in any personnel decisions or anything. He was just supposed to be a yes man, go coach. So it's going to be hard to see maybe a reputable head coach. I mean, I know who my top two right now. I want either Eric Bieniemy from Kansas City or Joe Brady from Carolina. Two young offensive minds that if you're going to, whether it's Hurts or Wentz, you need an innovative offensive mind. And I think it's going to be a first-time head coach, especially if Howie stays. If Howie leaves, maybe you can hire a coach that can maybe oversee personnel too.
Well, we don't want a Bill O'Brien situation here, Jake. We saw what happened there. Poor Deshaun Watson has nobody to throw to. He's arguably throwing to himself. I mean, he had the majority of the offensive yards. But what I will say is this, Zach, and Jake, if you're still here, I will say that when it comes to what would transpire, Doug Pearson said he was sick of just being told what to do. Now, before we brought you on, as I was saying, the reason why we're telling you what to do, because what you're doing is not working. This team was below 500, twice, Zach, in the past 2 years? And what you're doing is not working. We're telling you to help you fix it, and you won't do it. You won't do it.
Well, I am curious. I do want to say, Gavin, sorry to interrupt you, but Jim Schwartz apparently has a lot of weight about the personnel that he gets to have on defense. I've heard a lot of reports about that. So when did Doug lose the keys, if he did, or did he never have the keys?
He never had the keys.
He never had the keys.
Well, there's your problem. There lies one of your problems. This team, ever since Ty Roseman's been the GM, Andy Reid had a losing record. We know the Chip Kelly fiasco, and Gavin did happen to beat him, but I'm just going to push that aside because you do ruin everyone you touch. No, I'm just kidding. At least for now. But look, I'll be honest. This is breaking news. It's I'm not going to say shocking, but there's a lot of rebuilding that this team needs to do. It's a broken glass. It's never going to be back together as pure as it was, but you can put the pieces together as best you can. I do think that was the conversation that it was a Jalen Hurts or Carson Wentz decision. I think Doug Peterson, that's kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for some of the other power issues that have happened inside the organization the past year or two.
Jacob, I can ask you real quick. What do you think about Lincoln Riley? That's been the name that we just came up with in the past, I want to say 10 minutes, Lincoln Riley. What's your thoughts on that?
I like it. I mean, obviously, if you're set on going forward with Jalen Hurts, which I don't know if not Doug Pederson, Jeffrey Lurie is yet, it's a good hire. I just don't know if Lincoln Riley, he's got a very good gig at Oklahoma. I don't know how content he is at leaving. I feel like I'd rather go for a first-time coach, offensive coordinator, like I said, Bieniemy, or like a Joe Brady. But I also want to go back. You look at these power struggles. It's not the first time it's happened. I mean, look at the Chip Kelly fiasco. Chip Kelly pretty much talked his way into being the GM and the head coach, and look at the disaster that caused. It's not the first time there has been some kind of rift between Lurie, the head coach, and Howie Roseman. So that's where it makes it hard for me to say, why is Howie Roseman being given another opportunity? Yes, he built a Super Bowl contender, but he didn't build it through the draft, which is usually how you have to build teams. He built it through pretty much free agency. A lot of the impact players on that team were veterans that they traded for. And the odds of you hit on cheap veterans once in every 10 years. Every year there's not a Patrick Robinson, there's not a Chris Long, there's not a Nick Foles strolling through that door.
Also Jeffrey year.
Ronald Darby also had a good year with Garrett Warren, who was old.
They all had career years. And moving forward, you have the 6th pick in the draft. You need to hit on that pick. You cannot miss on that pick. If you miss on that pick, you set the franchise back even more than it's at right now. So the thing is, can you trust Howie Roseman to hit on that pick? I don't, and I hope Jeffrey Lurie comes to that realization soon.
Well, real quick, Jake, I've been saying this for the past, I want to say 2 months now, is Howard Roseman. Yes, Jake, I know you haven't been on in a minute, so it's Howard. I just got to let you know it's Howard, not Howie no more. It's Howard because he doesn't deserve a nickname anymore. All right, he gets his government name Howard. But all in all, Jake, you're right. You hit with a whole bunch of veterans, and if I may point out, the last good Alshon Jeffrey year was his first year here, and you paid him after that. So, Jake, with the 6th pick on draft night, whoever walks out to the stage, I guess Roger Goodell, if they're doing that, I don't know if it's virtual, he might come down to this basement again. I don't know what he's doing. But with that 6th pick, who do you want to hear be called?
Cut all the junk. Cut out all the deep analytics and Pac-12 and Big 12 players and trying to make
You draft a Heisman Trophy winner.
you draft the best player, and that's Devontae Smith. If Devontae Smith is on the board, you pick him. If they don't pick look at last year.
Last year felt so easy.
But,
Everyone knew we're
Justin
getting
Jefferson
last year was so easy.
Justin Jefferson fell into the Eagles' lap, and Howie Roseman had to make the different pick. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside over DK Metcalf. Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. You pick the most talented player. These guys go to Alabama. They go to LSU for a reason. Don't go pick a player who goes to Stanford. These guys are 5-star recruits. They are talented players, and they are going to –
They're well coached. They're winners.
Yes, they're winners. They know how to win football games. So cut the junk. As I'll try to avoid any profanities on here, but cut the junk. Cut all the analytical stuff. Just pick the best player available. Stop messing around. And if Howie Roseman's still here and he doesn't pick Devontae Smith, there's going to be a lot of upset people in the city.
Well, first of all, I was upset, Zach. You recalled I was upset the night it happened. I called you and I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this happened. I really can't believe this happened." My own mom had to call me and say, "Stop screaming," because it was a gift. I'm not playing, guys. It was a gift. You couldn't ask anything better than that. You had CeeDee Lamb, you had Heavy Roach, you had Jerry Jeudy. All the top guys went, and they were Alabama. All right, and then you had Oklahoma. But who was after that? You asked. You had a guy from LSU that just won the national championship.
He won. He's a winner. SEC defense is a trip.
18 touchdowns. He had 18 touchdowns his last year.
He scored against Alabama in the first half. It was the easiest
Alabama, Georgia, and Clemson, and you get someone from TCU. You can't make this up. I just 6 pick. I get PTSD from the 6 pick because I know what's going to happen. I know it. You guys might know, but I know it. We're going to get, and I hope this doesn't happen. We're going to get somebody for the defense, and Howie's going to say, "I thought this was the right pick." And guess what? I'll be upset. I don't know.
Look,
we'll see between now and then.
You pick the most talented players. But, guys, I got to run. Thanks so much for having me on today. Love the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what comes next from there. So have a good one, guys.
Thanks for being on. Again, for those just tuning in, Doug Pederson fired as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Bringing in another friend of ours, surprisingly the first time on, he has a talk show of himself. I've had an opportunity to listen to it. I do have to say really quickly, you did not have the best weekend for your predictions. I saw that.
No, I did not.
A little bit better. But Gavin, this is a good friend of mine, Zach. We went to the same camp for quite some years. Zach, I mean, breaking news, man. Doug Pederson fired as a head coach.
How's it feel? Be honest.
I'm confused because the whole season, Doug Pederson was without pretty much his whole offensive line. He only had a few starters in there, if that. And he did, in my opinion, he did the best with what he had. It wasn't as if that he had the Kansas City Chiefs. He had a beat-up Carson Wentz, who played up until the Packers game. He had Jalen Hurts, who's a rookie quarterback. He had all these guys who, honestly, we had Fulgham. We didn't even use them for the second half of the season. So, for me, it's more of a Howie Roseman issue, as I was listening to Gavin talk about how he has awful draft picks and how he's set up Doug Pederson, in my opinion, to get fired because he didn't give him the proper weapons in order for Pederson's not regime, but his coaching staff to succeed.
I mean, look, before the season, offensive coordinator or not, that was the essential question. Doug Pederson rolled forward without an offensive coordinator. That put the pressure on Doug. That really lit the fire on him. Now, play calls have not been the best. Play selection has not been the best.
Absolutely
the same way with Carson Wentz. I know you're more of a Jalen Hurts fan. We'll definitely get into that in a minute. I've definitely done my fair share of defending Carson up until arguably the Steelers game. It was hard. It was hard to defend Carson after that point.
Yeah.
But when this team has a healthy O-line, which they had the number one O-line, by the way, last year and the Super Bowl year. They won the Super Bowl one year. They go 9-7 the other year. But the correlation between running the ball and winning games was huge. And I think that was the big problem. Don't get me wrong. I think Doug is the scapegoat for this problem. But you're right. There's not a lot of talent on this team, and of what is there is banged up. But when you see the power struggle between Doug Pederson and Jeffrey Lurie, when you see my guess is that Pederson wanted to go forward with Hurts and Lurie wanted to go forward with a QB competition, if not necessarily stick with Wentz going into the season. And then you see things like this. He wanted to keep his offensive coordinator. Pederson did last year, Mike Rowe. He said it. We're going to keep him. The next day, he fires him. That was something over his head. So you have the power struggle. On top of that, you do have questionable play calls. Again, there wasn't a lot of talent this year. but I feel like there could have been more to be done than a 4-win team. Going into the season, you're the only team with the same quarterback and the same head coach from the year before in a pandemic season that shortened training camp, made it virtual, and got rid of preseason, and they couldn't take advantage of it. So what are your thoughts, I guess, on Howie Roseman? How should we proceed with that? Because we know he's made a lot of mistakes.
Oh, it's Howard, by the way. I just want to let you know that. He doesn't have a nickname no more after the garbage he's been pulling. Go on.
We're going with Howard.
It's
Howard
Howard.
Roseman.
Howard Roseman. Well,
Howard
Howard
Roseman.
Roseman. He, in my opinion, he has made numerous draft mistakes. We talk about it on our show. We talk about how he thinks that he's the smartest guy in the room. He always tries to go for the guy, the Arcega-Whiteside, the Rager, just in these past 2 drafts. He doesn't go for the obvious choice usually. And I think that with having the 6th overall pick instead of maybe the 4 or the 5, that concerns me a little bit because as Gavin was talking about, or it was Jake, they were talking about how the defense, they may pick Micah Parsons from Penn State, which concerns me a little bit because we clearly need some offensive weapons to either help Wentz or to add on to Hurts. So to answer your question, I think that Howie Roseman, he's smart from a business perspective, but he's not a football guy. I wouldn't have this guy running a Philadelphia football team, let alone any football team, because he really has not had an all-pro player other than Carson Wentz that he has drafted.
Well, here's my problem, Zach, and I'll be honest. We know Howard Roseman, all right? He's an idiot. He thinks he's outsmarting people, but he's not. They're outsmarting him. Do you really think the Minnesota Vikings like, oh my God, this guy's an idiot. He really just did this? And then they had the nerve. And guess what, Zach? This is the best part. Zach and Zach. Wow, that's the first time I said that. Zach and Zach. Best part. Justin Jefferson's an all-pro, and he's going to the Pro Bowl.
Exactly.
And he beat
over 1,000 yards.
And he beat Randy Moss's record. Now, I'm not trying to hate on Jalen Reagor, but I don't want you. I didn't want you. And DK Metcalf, Zach, you said something that may be an unpopular opinion, but guess what, Zach? You might be right. A.J. Brown might be better in the long run, but at that moment of time, I think DK was the obvious choice. And it's not about the one time he did it. It's the numerous times he did it.
You drafted Al Pumphrey in the year where Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara were still on the board. You drafted Jalen Reagor in a year where you have CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy. We knew it was a deep wide receiver class. You could have traded your 1st and 2nd round pick to trade up for CeeDee, or this. You sit right where you are, and you get the kid who just won the national championship with an NFL caliber team against some pretty dang good defenses.
Exactly.
That's my opinion. And it panned out beautifully this year. Justin Jefferson over 1,000 yards, breaking records. But yeah,
and no offense to Kirk Cousins, he's not, in my opinion, although we haven't seen much of Hurts, but at the same time, he's clearly a more diverse quarterback than Kirk Cousins. And
I would say unpopular now, but going into the season, people probably would say Carson Wentz was better than Kirk Cousins too.
Yes. So I think that if we were to have drafted Jefferson, that we would probably have been a playoff team, even without the offense.
Say that again.
We probably would have been a playoff team if we would have drafted.
What would happen if Travis Fulgham?
Right there.
The 2 games we used Travis Fulgham in were our most competitive games. And they weren't against no scrubs. They were against Joe Hayden might be older now, but it was against Hayden and Hilton, which is a pretty damn good secondary.
Very good.
Fulgham caught a touchdown pass over Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters. You can't tell me the kid's not talented. The lack of utilization in him, but also getting more talented receivers so that you can take the pressure off of him, that it makes a difference. The ability to have a number 1 wide receiver, Julio Jones, although he had injuries this year, Matt Ryan, his go-to guy. Stephon Diggs, look at Josh Allen this year. Gavin, we talk about this all the time. Stephon Diggs, new home this year. They do well. DeAndre Hopkins, I know the Cardinals had a sour ending to their year, but it made Kyler Murray a lot better. There's a significant upgrade for quarterback play when you give them a legit number 1 wide receiver and a legit number 1 wide receiver threat.
Exactly. And that just further shows that you need a star wide receiver in order to win. And Justin Jefferson is a star wide receiver. He took over beautifully as a rookie for Stephon Diggs. And I think that unless if he has an injury or things change up in Minnesota, I think that he will be one of the biggest draft mishaps in Philadelphia history.
Right up there with the one right before, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Not only over DK Metcalf, over Hollywood Brown on Baltimore, who had a pretty good day yesterday, and over Terry McLaurin. And we also drafted, not only did we draft for Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk had a pretty good year. T. Higgins out of Clemson, the Bengals got. So
The
it
list
was,
goes on and
it was
on.
a disaster of a year. You draft Davion Taylor, no offense to him, but I mean, and of course, the questionable pick, and yeah, Gavin, I'll let you go in a minute. The questionable pick, of course, Jalen Hurts right now looks like not a terrible pick because we know how Carson fell off. But assuming the mindset back then, I don't know what it was of why they drafted him. Maybe they saw Carson falling off. I don't know. There's a lot to be discussed about that pick. But at the same time, you could have drafted Zach Baum, the rookie linebacker out of Wisconsin for the defense. You could have drafted another wide receiver. I don't know. I mean, Quez Watkins, John Hightower, they had flashes in a pan, but this team they could not take the easy pick, and that's what the hardest thing to swallow is.
There's a lot of sorry.
Go ahead, Zach Square. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that there's a lot of you could have. And I think that if we had a guy different GM other than Howard Roseman, that there wouldn't be as many could haves. There would be that we would already have the guys like Metcalf, A.J. Brown. It doesn't matter, but the list keeps going on and on. And I think as long as we have this guy as our general manager, we're going to have a whole declaration of independence of players that we could have had on our team.
Well,
take a look at the Sixers. You revamped the front office this year. 21st overall pick, ironically, the same as the Eagles. You take Tyrese Maxey. You take the easy, no-brainer pick.
Exactly.
Kentucky develops phenomenal caliber players. Anthony Davis,
ready players. John Wall
or Devin Booker. You have all these talented guys. You take the easy pick. 39 points the other night in a game that should have never been played, but that's obviously a different conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the Eagles need to do. So, Zach, before we let you go, anything else you wanted to chime in on the Gab? I know you have one more thing to say.
I just got one thing to say to Zach, but I'm going to let him go first.
I have nothing more other to say than that Doug Pederson was not the problem here. He was the Brett Brown of this issue, and that I hope the Eagles can figure it out, but they're going down a slippery slope, and I hope they'll be able to figure it out before the beginning of next season.
See, Zach, I'm going to be honest with you, and this is the problem I have.
Right, guys.
Before you go. Or here's the problem I have, Zach. We know Howard. He thinks he's a genius, but he's an idiot. You know what he's going to do, Zach? And this is my fear. I get PTSD over this. This is my fear. You ready, Zach? He's going to pick someone from a division, or like Jake said, not the obvious person. He's going to go.
You got to pick the obvious pick. It's a given.
No disrespect to these schools where I'm about to name. He's going to go get someone from like a Wisconsin. He's going to get someone from like a Boise State. He's going to get someone that's not from the school we need. That's what's going to happen.
You need winners. You got to. TCU doesn't win. What does TCU win?
Blows my mind.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, for those watching again, Eagles fired head coach Doug Pederson. That is going to pretty much wrap it up for us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I know little 43 minutes of extra activity here on the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. Pretty good to put it together on the spot. But with that being said, everybody, thank you for joining us for this quick edition. We hope you enjoyed the call-ins. We had a lot of different guests on, a couple of new ones. Gavin, for the first time, as you noticed, we've had someone with my name on. I think that was kind of cool. But
X squared, we gotta bring him back because that's gonna be a fun show. Just trying to say Zach is Zach the whole time.
Yeah, no doubt, man. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with our regular
Howard.
Talk show.
Bring him to fire him. I would love for him to. Zach, before we go, you know what would make my day even better besides this? If Howard Roseman gets on a coach plane, right? Not a private jet, a regular plane, and pays a ticket to go to Florida, gets in a cab that he paid for, goes to Jeffrey Lurie's house, and when he knocks on the door, Jeffrey Lurie doesn't open the door, and he holds to the sign and says, "You're fired. Find a way back to Philadelphia." That will warm my heart. Guys, I know that sounds a little bit heartless, but I'm furious. Like Zach said, Justin Jefferson's an all-pro. All right, Jalen Reagor's not. I don't even know what Jalen Reagor's going to be. No disrespect to him.
Eagles firing head coach Doug Pederson tomorrow on the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. We'll continue this conversation. Also recapping the Sixers who played tonight against Atlanta. Again, for those who missed today's show, it's going to be in our channel. And then, of course, this amazing episode. We have a lot of good guests on today. It was exciting. With that being said, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on this special edition. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Have a good one, everybody. See you, Doug.
If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. In addition, hit that bell icon and set it to all to get reminded of when we go live and when we post excerpts of our videos.